Buckeye Nation! You're now listening to the most opinionated, the most exciting, the most son of a Schmidt. You guys actually do something useful here, right? Like, is anything you do even beneficial to someone? Whatever. Now to the show that literally has tens, that's right, tens of followers. The show that brings the Ozone Radio Network to levels of mediocrity that only Michigan fans would know. This is the Sons of Schmidt, starring Mike Meals and Brandon Zimmerman on the Ozone Radio Network.
Welcome back, Buckeye Nation. This is the Sons of Schmidt podcast. This is season 3, episode 11 of the show. As always, I'm your host, Mike Meals. Joining me like he typically does, this time from Colorado again, is my good buddy, Brandon Zimmerman, the birthday boy. What is going on, buddy? Happy birthday. How you doing?
Thank you, Michael Dean. Things are good. Living the Colorado life.
Yeah?
1 year older. More gray in the beard.
It's a typical thing.
Inside my bones.
Yeah, I got called out on that today with mine, so I understand completely.
Yeah, and yours was just like 3 little strands of pube coming out. Mine's like the whole thing.
So now the 3 listeners that we normally have turned off and are, moving on in the world. So
I still get paid the same amount.
Hey, so do I. That's a good point. Exactly. Man, first things first, we've got the Michigan State game coming up this weekend. Ohio State comes out. They knocked off Nebraska last week, 36-31. The game wasn't as close at the end as the final score shows. Obviously, Nebraska scored late, and Ohio State just kind of ran the clock out and let it go at that. But initial thoughts on what you saw with Ohio State besides the score, anything there that you want to put out here before we dig into anything?
I don't want to get too far into it because we're going to talk about it, but I think there were positive signs to come from last weekend.
Absolutely.
I know we had both mentioned it, that we're more focused on what happened during the game than we were about the final score. And I know we both kind of meant that as like Ohio State whooping the shit out of the Cornhuskers and like more concerned about what it was. But so I think we still got to look at it the same way. It was a lot closer game than we thought, but I think there were some positive things that you can look at from that game and look forward to in the upcoming weeks. They still aren't anywhere near where they need to be, but at least they showed signs of taking those baby steps.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree with you there. There were definitely changes that we were kind of expecting and hoping for, so that was always a nice sign. But before we dig into the Nebraska recap, what you drinking, man? What's in the whiskey glass there tonight?
So tonight, I am drinking the Russell's Reserve 10-year bourbon. Never had this stuff before. Asked my wife to pick me up something cool. She picked this up for me, so thanks, wife.
Any good?
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, it's nothing special, but it's not bad. So
yeah, good. Yeah, I dipped back into the moonshine white whiskey one I was drinking last week from here in Texas, the Shire Shine. It's I'm really enjoying it, man. The more that I've had this bottle and I've been sipping on it on ice, it's pretty mellow. It's pretty good. So I think they did well down here. So besides obviously the game Saturday, let's go over the important stuff here. Obviously, Ohio State's 7-1. No, they're 8-1 now, aren't they?
Yep.
Yeah, I forgot to update that. 8-1, 5-1 in conference. Michigan State's coming in ranked number 24 in the AP poll. They're 6-3, 4-2 in conference, third in the Big Ten East. The game Saturday at noon. It'll be on Fox with Joel Klatt and Gus. What's his name?
Gus Johnson?
There you go. They're on the call. That's what I saw earlier.
Yeah.
So
and Jenny Taft.
And what?
And Jenny Taft at sideline reporter.
There you go. Yeah, you could have put a gun to my head. I couldn't have told you who that is. As we're talking here, I'm refreshing. The college football playoff rankings are coming out at this very moment, and it will be before we're done talking. The top 10 should be released, but as of now, Ohio State is not in the bottom half of the top 25. Michigan State is currently ranked 18th in this week's polls. What are you expecting to see out of there? There it is, actually, Ohio State, number 10. So what are you seeing and what are you thinking out of this so far?
It honestly starts to make me upset seeing that, LSU stayed up ahead of Ohio State, even though they got whooped by Alabama.
Just destroyed.
It's just, I can't even try to do this. I still don't give a shit.
There you go. That one's just for you, Adam. So, I'm looking at it right now. West Virginia's 9, Washington State's 8, LSU's still 7. So, there's nothing in there that surprises me. As I've said it before, and I'll say it again. If Ohio State wins out, they're in. It's that simple. So, I'm not buying into it. I'm not going to say Ohio State's any better the way they've been playing than some of these teams ahead of them, but they're definitely not worse than some of these teams either. So I'm not concerned with it. So we're going to go ahead and cap that off right there. Anything else you want to get on the record before we take our pause and come back and dive into Nebraska?
I love bourbon.
I'm glad we got that out there. We'll go ahead and save that. Maybe we'll use that as the intro next year. So on that note, we're going to go ahead and pause. And when we come back, we will really get into the changes we saw with the Nebraska game and look at the over-under keys to the game, see how we did with those. And the last thing we'll do in this first segment, we got a couple questions for Brandon to answer here. So we'll pause. We'll come right back and get it.
This is the Ozone Radio Network, a Hazen Cannon production. For the latest episodes of all your favorite podcasts covering Buckeye Nation, look for the Ozone Radio Network on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and Speaker. You can also find the latest episodes by clicking on the Hazen Cannon tab at theozone.net. Once again, here are the Sons of Schmidt.
All right, man. So as I mentioned, Ohio State was able to knock off Nebraska 36-31. I think that might be part of what some people are seeing. They're looking at the score and it's as close as it was. I briefly touched on in the beginning. Nebraska went down, scored late. The game was really out of hand at that point. It wasn't really up for debate, I guess you'd call it. Like you kind of knew that it was over. Especially once Ohio State got the ball back, they just needed a couple first downs. They locked it down, and they just decided not to push it. Couple big changes. Obviously, the running game returned for the first time this year. The two running backs, the team had 40 carries, 229 yards rushing total. That number would have been higher had we not had some dumb play calls and sacks and things going against us because Weber and Dobbins combined for 254 yards total. Few other changes. Obviously, you saw some other formations that we weren't really thinking that you would see, like Wyatt Davis coming in the backfield as being a lead blocker. You saw Haskins kind of had a bit of an off game, but there were some positives on the defense, some players that moved around a little bit. But what were your first thoughts on Ohio State versus Nebraska? What did you like? What didn't you like? And what do you think was a positive sign for the Buckeyes?
Well, the biggest positive sign for me was the staff's willingness to explore other options. I mean, that really wasn't something that we had seen too much before, but I know Isaiah Pryor was out, but seeing Shaun Wade start at safety and play that whole game, whereas earlier in the year, that would have been Jayshon Went. I mean, we saw that when Pryor was suspended for the first half of, I think it was Indiana. It was Jayshon Went in there. So seeing Shaun Wade back there, seeing Tommy Togiai and Haskell Garrett get a lot of early playing time on the defensive line was huge. That's something that we've been calling for a few weeks now where we just feel like there's not enough pass rush getting from that defensive line. So let's just beef up that defensive line, get the bigger guys in there, and allow the linebackers to roam freely because they cannot get off of the block, and they've been struggling with it. So get those guys like Togiai and Davon Hamilton and Haskell Garrett in there at defensive tackle. Let Draymond Jones slide out to the defensive end. I still hope we see that at some point more than like a third down rushman package type of thing. Have him and Chase Young on the outside and just utilize those big 310-plus pound bodies to occupy the guards and the centers and let Tough Borland, Baron Browning, and those type of guys roam freely and stop those runs. So it was good to actually see those young guys get a lot of playing time early. Offensively, we knew they were going to come in and really focus on that run game. I don't think that really should have surprised anyone. It really shouldn't have surprised anyone that the passing game, kind of fell off because of that too. I mean, it's just a matter of numbers. I know in our heads, like we want Ohio State to throw for 400 yards and run for 300 yards every game, but there's just not enough snaps, not enough yards on the ball field for that.
So what was it would you say the passing game fell off because they concentrated on the run, or was it an off game for Dwayne Haskins? Because in my mind, I understand that there's going to be a trade-off. You can't throw the ball, 40 times and run the ball 40 times in a normal game. But, he was just over 50% on completions, and he looked like he was off a little bit. So was that just a contributing factor and you add it all up and it made it feel off, or was it one thing over the other?
Well, I think Dwayne Haskins was definitely off compared to where he was. Mainly because, like, if you look at his first three throws or so, they were all kind of overthrows, high. He was a little more amped up for this game than he has seemed in games past. But then I think it was a little bit of the focus on the running game too, because you got to think about not only did he come into this game a little more amped up than normal, but he also is a very young kid still. I mean, like, we all kind of forget about how young Dwayne Haskins is, but he's had all year where the focus has kind of been around his passing game and stuff, and he's able to get into a rhythm and stuff. So I feel like he was never really able to get into a rhythm this game because he wasn't fed the passes as much as he has been in years past because they were trying to get that run game going. So I think Dwayne Haskins was definitely off, but I also think it was a part of it was because they were focusing on the run game. That's something that Dwayne Haskins needs to work on, because as the weather turns, they are not going to be able to go out there and throw the ball like they have in games past and let him get into that rhythm. So Dwayne Haskins has got to work on, and I think we'll keep on seeing it in the next couple of weeks against Michigan State and against Maryland. Focus on the run game and see if Dwayne Haskins can turn that into still being the Dwayne Haskins that we all love while doing that.
How much of that, I know we briefly touched on it last week, and I know some people are thinking of it, but how much of it do you think not having Austin Mack on the field contributed to that also?
I mean, I think it had a little bit of a contributing factor to it, but I know it was a close game, and I was sitting here with friends watching the game, and I personally just never felt, it's weird to say, I never felt like the game was at a risk for the Buckeyes. Like, there was never a point where I felt like Ohio State was losing this game. Like, they were losing the first half, they were losing at halftime. It was kind of a weird game for me because I don't feel like there was ever that high pressure situation for the Buckeyes. And that's when Dwayne Haskins likes to rely on Austin Mack, is that high pressure, third and long, near the goal line, like that's when he tends to look for Austin Mack. So, I mean, I'm sure it played some role in it, just not having that comfort guy out there. But I think it wasn't as big of a factor in this game as it would have been in like a game against like Michigan or Michigan State on Saturday.
Well, and that was the thing, like you touched on it there. even like in our group chat when we're talking it on Twitter and stuff, like, yeah, Nebraska came out and they scored right away, right? First drive, they drove down and scored. And what was it? They said that was the first time Ohio State had given up a touchdown on the opening drive all year or something like that. I forget the exact number, but, Nebraska has done that. I think it was 5 out of the last 6 weeks now after Ohio State. They've came out, first drive, they went down and scored. So that was just the norm. Like, we were kind of expecting that they're going to move the ball. You knew Martinez and I can't say their running back's name now, Ogizmo or whatever it was.
Ozigbo.
Ozigbo, there you go. Like, you knew they were going to move the ball. But, yeah, you're right. Like, it was never out of hand. And when Ohio State got the ball back and Haskins wasn't having to win the game himself, like, you could feel that they had dedicated to the running game. It just felt like this was a secure game from the opening kick. So, yeah, I agree with you 100%. I was not overly worried at any one point on the way that game was going.
Yeah, I mean, it was just weird. I mean, it just had that feel to it. The Buckeyes, and I know I made a comment, I think, on Facebook about it too, but it was weird how, like, people are trying to pretend like the Cornhuskers kind of was giving that game away. But, I mean, Ohio State had 6 fumbles.
Yep.
They had the pick. I mean, there was, 2 fumbles when they were driving down. There was the pick inside of the 20. I mean, the Buckeyes did a lot to make that game close, a lot more than the Cornhuskers did. I mean, I don't call blocking a punt, a team just giving away, like, on a stupid play, like you do with Mike Weber fumbling it over and over, or KJ Hill fumbling it, or Dwayne Haskins throwing into triple coverage. Like, there are things that happen. I feel like Ohio State kind of gave that away. And at no point did I feel like the game was even a worry for me, I mean, like I said, I was sitting there with friends and they were shocked that I wasn't getting angry or, pissed off or anything. And my comment to them was, and this was during the first half, was, like, Ohio State's playing like they don't care. So I'm not going to care, like, if they're going out there just kind of lackadaisically going through the motions, like, I'm not going to get upset that they are losing. I mean, if they don't care, then I don't care. And as it went on, like, I knew they would be able to pull it out. I thought it would be by a few more touchdowns, but a win's a win.
Well, and the other side of it is, if you look at some of the mistakes they made, the fumbles, the interceptions, those are things that you see when you concentrate on something else. Like, they introduced a section of an entire new offense. They talked about, they eliminated the RPO and the read option stuff. And those little plays where you make a mistake and one of your sure-handed guys like KJ Hill puts the ball on the ground twice, that's because they're concentrating on something else the last 2 weeks. So, being that it was Nebraska, I'm not worried about it. Now, if they came out of the break and this was Michigan State right now out of the bye week, I'd have been a little more concerned. But, yeah, with it being Nebraska, I wasn't overly concerned about it one bit at all. And the thing is I don't know so much that Ohio State didn't care as much as even like you made it out as right there. I mean, you don't block a punt when you don't care. So obviously they were trying things, but it was still, in my mind, it looked more like they were trying to feel out the process rather than they were able to just, pin their ears back and play balls to the wall. So that's kind of what I saw a little bit out of it. So a little bit different vantage point.
Well, and just remember, though, that the block punt was by a backup, and backups always play a lot harder than the starters do.
Okay, Ben.
No, the other thing is what we all got to remember on the offensive side of things here, too, is that this game was 100% going into it, and as the game went on, about giving run block confidence to that offensive line.
Yep. Anything
else that happened, I personally feel like the Ohio State coaching staff did not give a shit about. Like, they wanted to get that confidence up there in that front five, get that confidence with J.K. Dobbins, get that confidence with Mike Weber, because that's what they need going forward. I mean, Dwayne Haskins is going to do his thing. Johnny Dixon's going to do his thing. Paris Campbell's going to do his thing. KJ Hill's going to do his thing. they need those front five and J.K. Dobbins and Mike Weber to do their thing to have any sort of success moving forward. So that's what this game was about.
And as a side note, it was nice seeing Brandon Bowen suit up.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. Was he in uniforms? I know they were talking about him still being a little bit hurt.
I'll be honest with you. I didn't see it personally, but I saw actually his girlfriend, fiance, somebody posted it on Twitter and somebody had retweeted it, and he was dressed. That's what I saw. So
speaking of offensive linemen, it was awesome to see Wyatt Davis wearing 86 playing tight end.
That was one of the biggest 86s you'll ever see, by the way.
Well, it was funny because, like, I'm sitting there watching that game. I'm like, who is 86? Like, I'm drawing to my mind. I'm like, Draymond Jones isn't playing offense. Like,
and that's not Draymond Jones.
Yeah, well, and then I saw the name Davis, and I'm trying to run through my head, like, who on the roster. I'm like, what tight end's name is Davis? And then my buddy was sitting closer to Billy was sitting closer to the TV. He's like, oh, they said it was some offensive lineman. I'm like, oh, Wyatt Davis.
Damn it.
So it was fun to see that. I mean, getting Brandon Bowen back is going to be huge whenever they do get that back. I mean, people seem to forget about how good Brandon Bowen was last year. I mean, like, he beat out all those guards to take that guard spot. He was a solid starter.
Wasn't he a tackle when he came in too?
Yeah, so when he first came in as
down
tackle,
last year, right? That's right.
Just like they did this year where they kind of moved Michael Jordan over to get the best five. That's kind of what they did with Brandon Bowen last year, because he was easily the number 3 tackle.
Yep.
And then they just wanted to get their best five on there, so they slid him into that right guard spot. And then when he got hurt against Maryland, that's when Demetrius Knox jumped in there. So getting Brandon Bowen back is going to be huge. Like, we all kind of forget about him because it's been over a year since he got hurt. But I mean, that dude's going to be a big boost in wherever he fits in.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know, like, we haven't had a whole lot of chance to go through everything as far as the depth chart and the staff interviews and the player interviews, but what little bit you have went through and saw, did anything stick out to you, or is it just kind of the same old in your mind?
I mean, most of it's just same old, but I think the biggest thing is the whole safety situation with Brendan White and Sean Wade back there. And I mean, I guess you got to throw Isaiah Pryor into that mix. They keep on bringing his name up, but I think Isaiah Pryor is kind of on the outside looking in now with that one. So still a lot of talk. They are saying that it's going to come down the next few days, and maybe that's why Ohio State hasn't released the 2 deep here at Tuesday night at 7:55 p.m. when they normally release it earlier in the day. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with Sean Wade and Brendan White, what they ultimately wind up doing with Sean Wade. I know we've been calling for Sean Wade back there at safety. I think Sean Wade's a good safety. He just needs to kind of get more action back there. He's been moved around so much from corner to that nickel to safety. I mean, he just needs to get into a spot and jump in there. So, but Brendan White looked like a certified badass on Saturday.
Yeah.
Dude.
That actually leads us to one of the questions that we were asked on Twitter at 4U2NV, big follower of the show. He asked a couple questions in here. The first one was, this week, do you play Sean Wade or Brendan White at safety next to Jordan Fuller?
I think this is a tough one. I mean, because
I know in my mind, I'll go ahead and I'm going to jump in. In my mind, you put Brendan White where he played Saturday, move Jordan Fuller back to the other side of the field where he played last year and played very well, and Sean Wade is your full-time nickel back.
Well, and that's kind of where I lean to, but then I also worry because I think Sean Wade is a very good defensive back, and I think he needs to be a big part of this team moving forward. And I worry about him moving around so much. I think for this team, though, I kind of lean that way because they need that sure tackler. Like, they just have kind of been lacking that. And even Sean Wade, you saw him on Saturday kind of take a bad angle. I think it was like that screen pass where he kind of took a bad angle to it. White was not taking any bad angles. I mean, that dude played like a little over 2 quarters. I think Jordan Fuller was thrown out at like the 4 or 5 minute left mark in the second quarter, and he had like 13 tackles or something.
Led the team, 13 tackles. Yeah.
And
now,
I
was going to say, here's the thing you got to remember. Brendan White's dad was an All-American safety, so he comes from good pedigree. So he knows what he's doing.
Well, and what I like about that too is just like you said, that can move Jordan Fuller back to his old safety spot, where I feel like he did a lot better last year. I mean, he was more of an impact, and maybe this year it's because he's trying to cover for so much shittiness around the defensive side of the ball that it kind of has, made him not look as good as he did last year. But I think this would get him more to a comfortable spot. And I mean, Brendan White played a hell of a game. And I think at this point, if he goes out there and starts on Saturday, I have no problem with it, especially against a team like Michigan State, where they're going to line up and run the ball with, Hayward and LJ Scott if he plays, and Lewerke's going to try to beat you with like the play action type stuff. Like, you need that sure-handed tackler, and him and Fuller, I think, would be a perfect combination back there for that.
Well, with this setup, the way they looked on Saturday and the way they've looked this year, if you had Wade at that nickel back position and you have Fuller and White on the field, in my mind, that actually is the one time you can stay in basically a nickel defense as your base against this team, because now you have, in essence, 3 safeties on the field, which one of them is going to play as an outside linebacker against a team that likes to run the ball. So that's why this game in particular, I think that's what you do with those two. So,
well, and then that still allows you to have Jeffrey Okudah kind of roaming back there too, if he's back healthy. And while we're talking about defensive backs, guy I've been hard on for the past couple of years, I guess we can say, but I thought Damon Arnett played a hell of a game on Saturday. Like, he was making good tackles. He was hitting dudes hard, playing with confidence, a little more swagger than we see from anyone else on that defensive side of the ball. So just had to put that out there. I thought Damon Arnett played a very good game on Saturday.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and touch on the second part of this question for you. Should we be happy with close wins over teams that shouldn't be on our so-called level?
Hell no.
No, absolutely not. That's an easy one. And then the last one I got here for you, and we've touched on this a few times before, but why do we as Ohio State have so many first half problems?
Oh, man, that's a tough question.
See, for that one, I'm a little odd on that one, because I don't think that Saturday we had as many first half problems as we had earlier this season. So I'm kind of still hesitant to say anything. We've talked about how the coaches don't make adjustments, and sometimes it's almost like they have bad game plans or they don't talk during the game or whatever. But on Saturday, I really wasn't concerned with the first half problems. I'm hesitant to answer. That's one I'm going to table that question for a week. But what's your thought?
So I guess my answer to that would be, if there's anything that Urban Meyer and his coaching staff has shown us consistently over the past couple of years, is that they are sometimes loyal to a fault. And I think that Ohio State spends all week planning their game plans, scripting their offensive plays for the first couple, deciding what they're going to do going into this game, that I feel like it may just be a thing where Urban Meyer's like, look, like Ryan Day, Kevin Wilson, you guys came up with this plan all week. I'm going to trust you to do this for the first half, see if it works. Defensively, Shiano, you've been doing your thing. I don't even know what that is, but doing your thing over there. Bill Davis, you're a great speechwriter. I'm going to let you kind of do your thing for the first half, and then second half they kind of get a meeting of the minds, and that's going to hurt them at some point. But I mean, that's the only thing that I can think of is just, that blind loyalty almost to a fault where sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. And here lately, it's just been kind of bad because it's crappy to say. I mean, I don't know. Like, I hate it because you don't hear Alabama people saying that, like, we get the best shot that every team has type of thing. But, like, I feel like each week we kind of see different things from teams. And so Ohio State coaching staff, I guess, kind of thinks about what teams are going to throw at them and develops a game plan at that. And then if it's something different, they still have enough talent and they're confident in their players to just kind of go with what they have. So I'm just going to call it blind loyalty right now.
Okay.
Hopefully it changes.
All right. Let's touch over here. We brought them up as our keys to the game last week. I just want to touch on these real quick. Our over-under segment from last week, Tate Martell, 1 responsible touchdown. I didn't even see Tate on the field Saturday. Did you?
Nope.
No, I was going to say I didn't think I missed him, but so that one was the no. Rushing attempts, we had the rushing attempt bar set at 30. They cleared that. We knew that they were going to concentrate on the run. Any wide receiver with 100 yards receiving, that was a no, but hat tip here, Johnny Dixon was 4 yards short. So we knew that it was going to be close, but they didn't get that one. Linebacker play, we knew that was going to be a big key to this game. And quite frankly, the bar was set low, but it was, hey, are they going to have 9 tackles from the linebackers? And Harrison himself cleared 13. So obviously the linebacker play was able to step up and they were able to do some things to get them more involved. And then the last one we had were the defensive backs where they have 3 passes broken up. The answer was no. There was only 2 for the team. And we're not even going to touch on Michael Citro's favorite play where Tough Borland not only didn't break up the pass, but got pass interference on the same play. So we're going to go ahead and let that one slide. But before we close out Nebraska, is there any last things you want to get on tape here and that you want to touch on? Or are you pretty much good with the Cornhuskers and calling it a deal?
No, I think I'm good with moving on from this Cornhusker game.
It was a rather uneventful game, but it was good to see some of the changes be made for sure. So on that note, we'll go ahead and take a pause. We got our sponsor this week coming in. Once this is over, we'll come back. We'll look forward to Michigan State. Sparty's coming in. They're always a pain in our ass, and I expect more of the same Saturday in East Lansing, but we'll look at that when we come back from the break. So give us a couple minutes.
Buckeye Nation, make sure you're getting the latest news and episodes from the Sons of Schmidt podcast. You can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Sons of Schmidt. You can follow us on Twitter at Sons of Schmidt, or email the show, sonsofschmidt@gmail.com. And make sure to subscribe and review the podcast. We can be found on SoundCloud, iTunes, and Google Play. And look for us on Hayes and Cannon at theozone.net.
All right, Brandon. So, as I mentioned, Michigan State comes in. They're ranked in the top 25. They are deservedly so a lower half of the top 25 rankings in my mind. They got a couple losses. Besides losing to Arizona State, which you saw, you've seen this team in person already this year. They lost a couple games in the Big Ten. Michigan State is – yes, throw the Sparky fork up at me one more time. Michigan State is a consistent team over the last 15 or 20 years since D'Antonio's moved up to East Lansing. They consistently have a solid defense. They play old school, run the ball down your throat, play action, pass you to death kind of offense. I expect more of the same. They're really good about going into not just Michigan, but Ohio and Indiana, getting that not quite the 5-star blue chippers, but they go in and they pull out those next level guys that are really going in and compete and have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. And like I said, since D'Antonio's been in East Lansing, they've just been a pain in Ohio State's ass every year, in and out. It doesn't matter. I mean, even when you have an occasional blowout or something, that's kind of the rarity since he's been up there. But Michigan State comes in Saturday, having beat Maryland last week 24-3. They got some guys on their offense that are dinged up. LJ Scott, who is – he should be one of the better running backs in the Big Ten, but he's been in and out all season. Last I saw, he's still listed as questionable. Their leading receiver, Felton Davis, is out now for the season. He screwed his Achilles up. But Brian Lewerke, he's a typical Michigan State quarterback. He's thrown for 1,700-plus yards. He's got the same number of touchdowns as interceptions. Their offense is nothing to – write home about. They're averaging 234 yards a game passing, 125 yards a game rushing. Nothing that stands out to you kind of like a Dwayne Haskins stat line would. But, again, it's just that same solid offense. They play some stout defense. They're only giving up 250 yards passing a game, and that includes, as I said, the Arizona State. They've played Michigan already. They're only giving up 71 yards rushing. Last I saw, I believe that's still number one in the nation in their rushing attack for defense. But their two leading tacklers on defense are both linebackers. Both of them have over 60 tackles for the season. They have a handful of sacks between the two of them and about a dozen tackles for loss. But going through that stat line, going through what you've seen of Michigan State and having an advantage that most of us haven't, having seen them in person as you have, what should Ohio State expect from Michigan State, and how do we match up with them this week?
Well, like you mentioned, offensively, Michigan State's going to struggle quite a bit. I mean, they're 111th in scoring offense, 106th in total offense, 112th in rushing offense. But I think a lot of that does have to do with LJ Scott being hurt. He did get hurt in that Arizona State game, missed, I think it was like the next 4 weeks, came back for 2 weeks, missed last week again with the same injury. So I think having LJ Scott healthy will be huge for Michigan State if he is. I know we were looking at stuff before we even started this, and there's talk about possibly redshirting him. Because he's only played in 4 games so far, doing like a medical redshirt type thing. If he's out, then you look at Connor Hayward, who most Ohio State fans should know that last name, brother of Cam, son of Ironhead. So he's the guy that's kind of been filling in for the entire season with LJ Scott being out. Felton Davis was a huge loss for them. I mean, he's a legit number one type of wide receiver. So not having him is going to be huge. Lewerke, he's someone that's honestly surprised me this year. I honestly thought he was a halfway decent quarterback coming into this year, but this year he's just kind of struggled, and maybe it's not having LJ Scott back there. Who knows what it is, but Lewerke just does not look like he did at times last year, where we kind of expected him to almost be that Nate Stanley type of quarterback that Iowa has. Like that's just kind of what everyone expected coming into the year. Defensively is where they're at. I mean, that's just like you said, it's every year defensively, Michigan State's going to do their thing. They're going to be stout against the run. Like you said, they're number one in rushing defense. They have shown some vulnerability there, though. Penn State was able to run all over Michigan State, running for 205 yards, averaging almost 6.5 yards per carry. Michigan was able to run for 183 yards against them. Outside of those two teams, though, no one else ran for more than 63 yards. So Ohio State's hit or miss on their rush offense. I mean, we've seen some big games. We saw a big game last week. Michigan State's been hit or miss with their rush defense, mostly hit. But against their two really only good teams, they struggled quite a bit. So where's Ohio State going to fall into that? None of us freaking know. And that's what we've been asking for like weeks. It's like, where does Ohio State fall into that? I guess we'll find out against Michigan State. I mean, this is going to be a good test to see. And like I said, they were trying to focus last week on getting that rushing offense confidence up as much as they can, get that confidence level at the offensive line, because they know against Michigan State they're going to have to do it. Pass defensive, Michigan State struggles there. And that's one thing I noticed at the Arizona State game was they've got one legit corner, and I honestly don't even know his stats off the top of my head or anything, but I just know watching him during that Sparky game, Justin Lane was like their top corner. He was the guy that they were moving around whenever N'Keal Harry was in. It was Justin Lane going up against him. He was lined up in the slot on the outside. So that's the guy that they really feel comfortable with. With that said, Arizona State was still able to beat Michigan State deep, and that's where Michigan State has struggled this year, number 98 in passing defense. So they're kind of at the very end of the spectrum there in passing defense, very beginning of the rushing defense at number 1. So I think Ohio State's still going to have to work on that balance, but I think they'll be able to score enough points throwing the ball like they have in games past if they need to against Michigan State. But it's going to be interesting to see how this all kind of works out against this Michigan State defense, who is probably the best defense they've faced all year. I'm trying to think. I mean, TCU had a really good defense back then. They've lost a lot of people to injuries since then. Penn State had a decent enough defensive attack. I don't think they had a good defense. I think they had a good game plan against Ohio State with their surroundings. So I think Michigan State's going to be that team that really forces Ohio State to do offensively, rushing the ball and defensive, or rushing and passing the ball. And it'll be interesting to see what happens, man. So
for the record, Justin Lane has 55 tackles for the season, 1 interception, and 8 passes broken up. So
so he's had a pretty decent year. I mean, like he played good. I mean, anyone that's followed me on Twitter knows, or anyone's listened to me for 2 years knows my love for N'Keal Harry. He is the best wide receiver in college football.
Yep.
No doubt about that. So Harry still made some plays against Justin Lane, but I was very impressed with him. He's a big guy, 6'3", 185. So that's where the matchup is going to be. And if Justin Lane can shut down KJ Hill, Paris Campbell, whoever lines up outside, they're going to, use him to shut down Ohio State's biggest weapon and rely on that front 7 to take away the run game.
All right. So looking at the keys for this game, our over-under this week, just want to get your opinion on. I know that it's going to be important for Ohio State to move the ball through the air, as you just detailed right there. Michigan State can, for the most part, shut down the run for most teams. Last week was a bit of an off game for Haskins, but this week, does Haskins complete over 60% of his passes?
I'll go over on this one. I think that's without seeing the weather. How's the weather supposed to be this week?
I honestly haven't looked. I don't know.
I don't think there's any huge storms coming through. I know Colorado, we're supposed to get snow tomorrow, but I don't think it'll affect anything out east. But, I'm going to go with over. I think it's going to be a pretty good Dwayne Haskins game on Saturday.
And I think it's going to be, as I mentioned earlier, that it's going to be something that they're going to concentrate on a little bit more this week because of Michigan State's defense. So I'm going to take the over here also. Now, on the flip side of that, does Ohio State with their running backs get 150 yards rushing?
Man, if we were playing for money, I'd probably go under just based off of like how Michigan State. Playing with heart, I'm going to go with over. I think Ohio State has kind of realized what they need to do. And we didn't talk about it earlier, but it's part of those changes that we did see with the coaching staff against the Cornhuskers. And I think we've kind of saw how they want to go. It was a conservative approach, and I think we're going to see a newfound success with the running game moving forward. So I'm going to go over.
I'm going to take the over here also. I think they're going to concentrate on it still and build off of what was happening last week. So going back to the shed this week, does any receiver from Ohio State have 100 yards receiving?
Receiver. I will go.
H-back is a receiver, by the way.
Yeah. I'm going to go. I'll go over.
I actually kind of think that this is going to be one of those kind of games. You're going to have a Terry McLaurin or somebody's going to get just over 100 yards. I could see that one for sure. I think this is going to be a little bit different in that you're going to have somebody go over 100 yards and you're going to have a couple guys in that 80 to 100 yard range. I see
Here's
multiples.
Another one that you can throw in there. I just have this feeling. I think J.K. Dobbins is going to have over 100 yards receiving this game.
J.K. Dobbins, 100 yards receiving. Okay.
J.K. Dobbins.
We have that on tape. Hold on. Let me get that added on here. But as I'm updating our little sheet here, do the defensive line and the linebackers, do they have 3 sacks?
Honestly, at this point, you've got to go under. There's really no pass rush of any sorts going on by that defensive line or linebackers, which I'm completely cool with, especially against a team like Michigan State. I'm all about just stopping that run game. Lewerke's not going to beat you throwing for 400 yards. They don't have the pass rushers outside of Chase Young and Draymond Jones to really focus on that too much. So I'm going to go under, and I'm completely cool with that.
I'm also going to go under. I think you have, as we did once before earlier this season, I think you have more tackles for a loss, but for sacks alone, I think it's going to be under 3.
I agree.
Last one here for you. For the defense, does the defense force 2 turnovers over under?
This is another one where I think you just got to go under. Just like there's no pass rush, there really has not been any defensive prowess, taking the ball away. So I got to go under on this one. And Michigan State's usually pretty smart with the ball. They may suck on offense, but they're not going to give you the ball most of the time.
I'm going to go ahead and call this one a push. I think they get exactly 2 turnovers. I see if you have Fuller, Wade, and White out there at one point, I can see one of them patrolling the middle and coming up with a pick. Because Lewerke likes to throw picks. And at some point, somebody else is going to put the ball on the ground. So I'm calling an interception and a fumble, and I think the defense gets 2 exactly. So I'm going to take the push there. So any last thing you want to get in line here for Michigan State, or are you ready to take a quick break and come back and get our Son of a Schmidt and Schmidt picks out of the way?
No, beat Sparty.
There we go.
That's all I care about.
And hopefully I can get through the rest of the show. I haven't called him Sparky yet, so I'm still pushing. So we'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll get the Son of a Schmidt segment out of the way and get our picks in and close this thing up. So we'll be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for your favorite weekly segment.
Son of a Schmidt.
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 All right, Brandon. So I know the one thing that that everybody enjoyed after Saturday's game was the realization that no more this season do we have to see election ads during the game. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and let you go to the poll booth first here and tell me what's on your mind. Tell me what's got you going this week. Are we going to rant on Ohio State fans some more, or do you have something else up your sleeve for us?
I've kind of been doing that. I've got something that I can rail on you guys about, but I'm going to kind of back off on it a little bit. I'm all about criticism. There's a lot of things to criticize about this current Ohio State team. I'm going to back off of that one. I'm going to rant on podcasters that mid-season decide to change their name.
Where are you going with this, buddy?
Part of a radio network where there's multiple podcasts and there's commercials and shit. We talk about them, and then they decide to change their name mid-season and make all of us make changes. I'm talking about you, Tony Gerdeman, and you, Tom Orr. Acosta Field was a damn good name. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that. Like, I enjoyed that. I felt like that fit pretty good for Tony. I mean, that's like a good Tony name, you know. Like
it felt like Tony.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, like, you can't get more Gerd than Acosta Field. I mean, like, that was like his band or something. Like, he'll make some joke about like, that's my band name back when we, you know, like flinkled buttholes and stuff. But now it's switched to the Buckeye Weekly podcast, which I guess is more like Google friendly and SEO friendly. And, you know, I mean, like, I guess clicks and shit matter to everyone but us. But, yeah, I'm just going to go with, you know, like, there's people that change their names mid-season, not wait until the end of the year. Son of a Schmidt. Have some feelings for other people out there.
So, for the record, I'm not recutting the promos for this right now. So, we're either going to have 4 more weeks of regular season calling them across the field, and we'll just have to tell people once in a while that it's the Buckeye Weekly podcast, or maybe later I'll get frisky and redo them. But anybody listening, when you hear the words across the field in any of our promos, just assume that is now the Buckeye Weekly podcast. So, yeah, good. That's a good one. Damn it, Tony and Tom.
Son of a Schmidt.
Googles. So,
but on the same note, make sure you check out all of our podcasts on the Ozone Radio Network. You have the Silver Bullets with Michael Citro, Chip Minnick. You've got the Buckeye Weekly podcast with Tony Gerdeman and Tom Orr. You've got the Sloopcast folks that come in, Kyle and Jared. And then you've got the Sons of Schmidt with Michael Meals and Brandon Zimmerman. Join on the Ozone Radio Network.
That's a pretty good one there. I don't know if I can cut that one in as your station identification, but I'll keep that in mind.
Don't be a dick, Mike.
So this week, my Son of a Schmidt actually is all about football being played by a team known as Alabama.
Never heard of them. Are they good?
I'm not real sure. I know that as Ohio State fans, we want Alabama, Birmingham. So, you guys, I'm just going to tell you, if you did not watch that game on Saturday night against LSU, Alabama is just light years ahead of everyone else in college football right now. I'm not going to say that they're not going to slip up and potentially drop a game, but my God, that is just a stacked team. Like, it is almost unfair how good that team is. You know, they were talking about it on the broadcast. So Alabama's third string running back was a 5-star high school running back. I mean, just I don't know how other teams are able to keep up with them. And honestly, until Nick Saban retires, I don't know if anybody's going to catch Alabama. I am ready to concede that now. You know, you may get them once in a while. You may catch them like Georgia did last year, Ohio State did a couple years ago. But my Lord, they are just built to dominate people, and it's almost scary to watch. Like, LSU is not a bad team. LSU's not an elite team yet, but they are not a bad team. But holy crap, to watch that game, that is you know, just it was amazing. LSU's wide receivers aren't very good, but they shut out LSU. Like, that's something to keep in mind. LSU's defense is really good. They kept Alabama to half of their season total, and LSU was never in that game. And it was a game at home in Death Valley, and Alabama just came in, and it was, you know, business as usual. So I'm going to go ahead and tip my hat, because Alabama is just so damn good. It's frightening as a college football fan. So, Son of a Schmidt, we need to do something.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the same thing watching it. Is Bama is so far ahead of everyone else. I mean, I think Clemson could play good against them just purely because of their defensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Just like I thought the Buckeyes would have had a chance against them back when Nick Bosa was around. I think if you can control that line of scrimmage, you can be all right. But, I mean, that's hard to do against Bama. And there is Bama, and then everyone else is just kind of fighting for a shot to get beat by Bama at this point unless a lot of things happen over this next month or so. I mean, Bama is pretty much looking forward to another national championship, and I'm not only Bama but SEC, I guess.
Well, yeah, because Ole Miss is going to celebrate that they won. So, all right, man. On that note, we'll pause real quick here. We come back, we'll cover the Schmidt picks. We'll get the picks for this week. We'll get your final score prediction for Ohio State, Michigan. And then we'll close this one out. So give me about 30 seconds.
You are listening to the Sons of Schmidt podcast on the Ozone Radio Network, presented by Hayes and Cannon. The ORN is the online radio home of the Buckeyes Sloopcast, the Silver Bullets podcast, Across the Field, and, of course, the Sons of Schmidt, with new episodes broadcast every day of the week. For more information, go to www.theozone.net. And now, back to the show.
All right, man. So last week, actually, it wasn't a terrible week for either of us. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4 correct picks for you. 1, 2, 3 correct picks for me. It looks like your season total is 37-17 now, and I'm at 34-20. You had Georgia correct, Alabama correct, Arizona State correct, and Ohio State correct. Texas and Penn State were the two that you missed on. I also missed on Texas. Obviously, I had LSU and Utah. So not really a whole lot of ground gained there. So it wasn't the best week for either of us. But, it's still a pretty decent percentage, really, when you look at it. This week, not a lot of big-time top 25 games. Not a whole lot to really rile up a bunch of fan bases. But, of course, there'll be college football, and it'll be great because it's another fun Saturday, and it'll be dark at 2:30 in the afternoon. So first game we got for you is number 18, Mississippi State. Pretty sure I know you're not taking Mississippi State as they go to Tuscaloosa and take on number 1 Alabama. But, hey, there's always a shot, especially coming off a big win in LSU. But what do you got in this game?
Honestly, I think Bama's only going to win by about 3 on this one. 3 touchdowns.
3 touchdowns? Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and agree with you there. That's easy, if not more. But, yeah, definitely Alabama. The next game is number 2, Clemson travels north and takes on number 22, Boston College. What do you see here?
Clemson, once again, by a lot.
I know nothing about Boston College, and I know Clemson is good. So
Boston College got A.J. Dillon, good running back, decent defense, but nothing that Clemson can just dominate.
No. Number 16, Iowa goes to unranked. I'm sorry. Well, I'm going to go ahead and restart this one. Number 16, Iowa goes to Northwestern. What do you got in this game?
This one's actually going to be tough. I mean, Northwestern's tough to read. I thought they might beat Notre Dame last weekend, and they played it tough. Iowa, you just never know what you're going to get. Northwestern at home. By chance, off the top of your head, don't search for it, but do you know if it's a night game or day game? It's probably a day game.
I'm sure it is.
It's Big Ten, November, so I doubt they're going to go let Northwestern play at night.
It might be the primetime game on BTN, though.
Yeah, but the
really
rules,
not.
like Iowa would have to approve that. I just don't know if I'm gonna go Iowa on this one.
All right, I'm actually going to take Northwestern at home. So
good pick.
We got a switch up there. The next one we have on the schedule here is Navy, who is reeling right now, travels to Orlando to take on number 12 UCF.
I'm gonna go with UCF. I mean, I would love to pick Navy on this one, but Navy's having a kind of a rough year.
Very rough
this year, especially compared to what they normally do. I'd love to see UCF go down, but at the same time, like I want UCF to win out because like I already laid out like my dream scenario for you offline with Tony and Tom and everyone and Michael back in the chat. So UCF will win this one.
Yeah, I'm going to take UCF there too. And for those of you that don't know, the basic premise is that Ohio State and Oklahoma and a bunch of these other teams win out, and the College Football Playoff Committee decides to go ahead and go with chaos and take undefeated 2.5 years not losing a game UCF into the playoffs over Ohio State or Oklahoma or something, and Ohio State gets to go and potentially win a bowl game rather than get beat down by Alabama in the first round of the playoffs. So, yeah. I'm going to take UCF there also. So.
Yeah, that is what it is for me. Like, I don't think anyone that listens to this, anyone that's a fan of Ohio State feels like they are a championship caliber team right now, but they still need to do the best to move forward and get the recruits and go into next year with confidence. Ohio State wins out. Oklahoma wins out. College Football Playoff Committee's chicken shit and is afraid to pick one of those two with similar strength of schedules and records and both conference champions. So they go with UCF. And then Ohio State goes off into the Rose Bowl and faces Arizona State, which would be awesome.
Well, see, Brandon, I'm going to have to send you some more of those internet monies because you just rolled that in with a great lead, because our next game is actually UCLA at Arizona State. Who do you got in this one?
This one's an easy one, actually. So that's probably the easiest one you put on there. So Arizona State, UCLA has been playing pretty good lately, but Arizona State's also playing pretty good. They went out. They win the Pac-12 South. I'll be at this game. As I mentioned, it's a big game for me and my wife, and big time for us. So, like, we get to go to this game and enjoy a lot of pretty awesome festivities centered around veterans and all that stuff. So, my wife is speaking at pregame tailgate party for President Crow, and then we get to go up into his suite and watch the game. So, it's going to be awesome.
Excellent. Well, yeah, I'm going to take Arizona State here too. I've been I think you're leading me onto this. I've been following them more and more as we've done this show, and there's a couple guys on that team that I'm big fans of, not just N'Keal Harry, but Enos Benjamin, their running back, however you say his name. Eno Benjamin. He's a pretty damn good running back. He's had a good year. So a little shout out to our former colleague and our good buddy Kyle there. The Sparky win is going to be the call for me. Last one we got, the only game that matters, and the best game on the top 25 schedule. Number 8, Ohio State goes to East Lansing to take on number 24, Michigan State. We've covered the keys to the game. I'm pretty sure I know who you're going to take. It doesn't change a whole lot from week to week, but give me a winner and give me a pick.
I've been jumping around with the score of this game for a lot this week, not only like offensively and defensively for the Buckeyes. I think Ohio State's offense will have a decent day. I mean, it's not going to be anything too crazy, but I think they'll be able to put up some points. I think the defense should be able to shut down Michigan State, but like, I just don't have the confidence in them right now. Like, this is a game where, like, if we had a normal Ohio State defense, you would expect Michigan State to score no more than 10 or 13 points. But then you just like got to factor in those like 2 blown plays or something that might happen at some point. Even with that said, I'm going to go with Ohio State winning this game, and I'm going to go with final score 31-17.
31-17. Well, it's kind of funny because, I typically start typing in my my score prediction before we get everything recorded here. And you can see the difference as the years progress because, earlier this year it was, we're going to win 77-10, right? Or 63-30 or something like that. Those were all the picks. You drop a 31-17. I'm taking Ohio State to win this game 35-24. So it's just kind of funny to see that regression back. I don't think Michigan State, even with their offense playing at the level it plays at against the Ohio State defense playing at its current level that they are a 24-point team right now. But being in East Lansing, I'm giving them credit for an extra touchdown just for that being being the home game, being on the road, being with Mark D'Antonio. So, I'm going to go 35-24 for this one for the good guys. So,
yeah. But even with me picking 17 and you picking 24, I would not be shocked if Ohio State's defense came out this week and played their best game. I think they showed a lot of signs last week of putting the pieces in place.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. So before I close this off, I'm going to ask you something that I haven't asked you on the show yet this year.
No, I will not make out with you.
Oh, well, in that case, we'll go Bucks.
I-O.
Is there a chance that Ohio State emerges from this game not victorious on Saturday?
This Saturday, I would lean honestly towards it. I mean, there's always the chance.
But realistically.
Realistically, I don't think Michigan State has the offense without Felton Davis and without LJ Scott being fully healthy, enough firepower to outscore the Buckeyes offense. I mean, as much as the Buckeyes offense has struggled, I think they've shown that they can, just go one-dimensional and let Dwayne Haskins throw the ball 400 times and put up some points and enough points to outscore Michigan State. So I'm not as worried about it this weekend. Maybe I'm just trying to psych myself out because I'm not going to be able to watch the game this weekend. So I'm not worried about this weekend.
Yeah, I'm not either. I don't see it happening. So, all right, man, we'll get ready to wrap this one up, but that's your last chance here. Anything else you want to get on tape? Anything sticking out in your mind or anything? I hadn't said anything enough there. Anything else, man?
No, I just hope the defense shows up this week and we see a balanced offense.
I'm game with that. So, all right, Duder, let's go ahead and send this one out. I really hope this one sounds good because we tried a little something different with our recording. So hopefully everything comes out good for you guys and we don't sound like a bunch of transformers when we go to edit this and whatnot. But
hi, Shannon.
Hi, Shannon. But on that note, go Bucks. OH.
I-O.
Buckeye Nation, make sure you're getting the latest news and episodes from the Sons of Schmidt podcast. You can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Sons of Schmidt. You can follow us on Twitter at Sons of Schmidt, or email the show, sonsofschmidt@gmail.com. And look for us on Hayes and Cannon at theozone.net.